Minor Assault's always been my sort of like first love, which we still, after all these years, can't quite give up on. Just metal, man. I just fucking love metal. I can't get enough metal in my life. Because on the one hand, it feels like a lifetime ago, but in the same breath, it feels like it was just yesterday. There's a lot of people out there who used to see us as a very, very, very active band, playing like, pretty big shows and stuff like that. But then we fell quiet for a long time. The only thing that really matters anymore is like the here and now.
Sweet guys, welcome back to another episode of Sludge Underground. I've got a special guest, a true veteran of the South African metal scene. Introduce yourself and what it is you do.
Howdy, my name's Patrick Davidson. Um, in the context of the interview today, I'm playing for Mind Assault. I'm one of the founding members of the band, which dates back to about 2003. So yeah, we're officially in the Obali category of metal bands in South Africa. But yeah, Mind Assault's always been my sort of like first love, which we still, after all these years, can't quite give up on. Um, and I suppose, yeah, you don't need to know about the other stuff really. Hey,
But you can talk about some of the other stuff, like your experiences in the scene, if it's
well, I play in two other bands currently active, which is Orphean Passage and Dead Man Risen. But I've also been involved for about 20 years, close on 20 years, Metal for Africa, which is something we like to do down here in Cape Town. And yeah, just metal, man. I just fucking love metal. I can't get enough metal in my life.
yeah, that's absolutely fantastic. I think Metal for Africa is like one of the like cornerstones of the South African metal scene as a whole. Like I don't think Cape Town would be the same without you guys, to the best of my understanding.
Well, we would have less cool opportunities, I'm sure. But yeah, I'm glad that the platform of Metal for Africa does exist. Um, it's just one of those things which I think more than just providing a platform for bands to play, it's kind of also built a really strong sense of community in the city over the years. So yeah, it's cool to be part of all these amazing things in our little neck of the woods. I'm very fortunate. Let's put it that way.
Like touching on Mind Assault, you guys, like I was just like browsing through the internet and stuff, and you guys, so you're saying that you guys have been a band since 2003, and looking at like YouTube, you guys uploaded your first video onto YouTube 18 years ago,
Yeah.
which is a wild number to like think of. I mean, I uploaded my first video on YouTube like 10 years ago, and that makes me feel like I've been on the internet way too long.
Yeah, even that's a long time.
I mean, it must be kind of surreal looking back from that first video uploaded and kind of like how the band has evolved over like well over 2 decades now of its lifespan.
Yeah, well, funny enough, it's like I so seldom spend time like reminiscing on those years. Because on the one hand, it feels like a lifetime ago, but in the same breath, it feels like it was just yesterday. Like I realize those words probably make no kind of sense at all. But I think when we've moved through so many chapters, everything just sort of like blurs into one like space-time continuum where the only thing that really matters anymore is like the here and now.
Yeah, that's like a really like poetic way of looking at it. And I 100% get you where like everything kind of like it feels like so long ago and but it just feels like yesterday because it's really difficult to like how do I say like remove all of those things from one another. They kind of all just compound into one collective memory
Yeah.
as the years go on, especially over that amount of time.
Yeah. Well, I think like I mean, over that many years, we've obviously been through all sorts of like ebbs and flows. Like we've had the like the sort of growth phase where we were just like new guys on the block, didn't mean a lot to the scene. Um, we might have had a bit of spark that got us to where we were going to go, but we weren't particularly good in the early days. Like, like our stagecraft and our musicianship and all those things. Like we were just a bunch of brasser trying to make metal. And then going through the phases where it's like, we start to take ourselves a bit more seriously as the public started to take us more seriously. Um, and then yeah, like sort of setting the aspiration for like bigger things. Um, and then also realizing at some point that like we have the ceiling of potential to reach in this country. So you sort of cast your eyes abroad a little bit. We went and had that experience, which was quite nice. Um, but yeah, like I think the life cycle we find ourselves in now is as the like earlier proclaimed Bali band. It's like I think now we're just happy to still be playing metal. Um, like it's not really about the big stage or the big shows or trying to get on the big tours and all that jazz anymore. Now it's just about still having that opportunity to do the thing we love with our good friends. Because yeah, like the other blessing about all these years is that we still have three of the founding members out of the five guys. Three of us are still the founding members, and a fourth member, our drummer, he's been with us since 2007. So it's been quite a like steady lineup.
Yeah, that's actually mad. That is the most impressive part of all of this. You managed to keep mostly like like metal musicians together for what like nearly 2 decades is madly impressive. And you guys must be an extremely like tight unit.
I guess what's kind of interesting is like those early years of being a band. When we didn't really know so much what we were doing or what we could achieve, it was just about playing metal. So those first, call it like 5 years, we would spend like 3 nights a week in the band room, like 2 to 3 hours of jamming, and then another 2 to 3 hours at the pub down the road. So those were like pretty wild years, like probably the most metal years in like character. But yeah, as life moves on, as you age, like I think we also, because we spent so much time together, we became like almost like a support structure, like an emotional support structure. Life takes its twists and turns, and the friendship that was built there, we could rely on each other for a lot of like counsel and advice across all different topics. So yeah, it's like it's just chums, It's like I think probably the biggest reason why we're still a band today is for um, that sense of friendship. We just like playing those songs together. So the phase we're in now, it's like less about trying to be big and more about just enjoying being and yeah, focusing more on writing than gigging. So yeah, different phase.
What interests me like so greatly about this, like you guys have a pretty unique perspective of having gone through so many different like eras of being a band in terms of like how the scene and how the industry itself works. So like the way that it worked in 2003 versus how it works now are obviously like two completely different things. Like it's how would you describe like it is like for a band that's been around for that amount of time to adapt to the times?
It's a pretty good question because I think like when we started out, it was quite funny how we actually started out, because the members who came together were actually like unlikely friends. Um, so like those years ago, it was not unusual that the English speaking people and the Afrikaans speaking people didn't quite see eye to eye. And in the town where we came from, or the area we came from, it's not actually Cape Town. It's called the Helderberg, which is a region of three towns: Strand, Somerset West, and Gordons Bay. So that's about 40 kilometers out of Cape Town. Um, and you had the English speaking school and you had the Afrikaans speaking school, and they would have inter schools together. And it would be quite like rough. Yeah, it's like we didn't like each other. We're from that era. But what kind of united us was metal. So we had a local pub in Strand called the Big Tree, and that's where all the rockers would hang out, and that's how we got to meet the other half of the band. And yeah, that metal kind of united us into this unlikely friendship. So in those days, it was like also there was a void in metal. There was a lot of hardcore going on at that time, but like metal, the way we wanted to play it, had kind of like evaporated from the Cape Town and surround scene. Um, and everything was still very like DIY. It's not to say that there weren't some like other larger events that we could come into orbit with and get booked for, but because we lived a bit out of Cape Town, no one really knew us. We didn't have that social capital, and this was before the internet. Well, the internet existed, but it wasn't the kind of thing we all had at home. I mean, we're going back to like 2003.
This was before Facebook. This was before YouTube. This was before. I mean, this was MySpace days.
No, not even MySpace yet. Yeah, so that actually forged the band, which was quite cool, if you think about it. But because later on we would see bands would be formed through those apparatus like social media, and people would get together based on what music they wanted to play, like specifically. They would name what like type of band was their main influence. We never actually had that privilege. We want to play metal. This guy's favorite thing is like Nile. This oak's favorite thing is Primus. This oak digs like Paradise Lost, and this oak digs like Demi Borger. It was like quite a um, like an eclectic mix. Um, but what else were you going to do? So we just got in the room and we made it work. Um, and trying to get shows was quite tough. So the first couple of gigs we did was just our band room PA system, which was a real piece of shit. Um, and we'd try and get into venues who didn't want metal bands. So like we'd sell them on like the idea that we're a hard rock band, but they would like check us out and was like, we're not so sure. But the one place we played several times as our first gigs was a place in Stellenbosch called De Lapa. And it's basically like this attic with a pool table and a little bar in the corner. But the space was no larger than like, I don't know, maybe two double garages. Um, but that's what the gigging circuit looked like for us in those first 2 years. Um, so if we look at the scene then versus what it is now, I'd say, shit, we're spoiled now. And I know a lot of people in today's scene won't see it that way. Like they're, not enough venues. Yeah, like a lot of people in today's scene actually complain about a lot of things that like we don't complain about, but because we remember a time where we didn't even have that. Um, so I would say today's scene has become actually really like polished. Like in terms of the types of venues metal bands can play in, and the type of like professionalism of PA equipment, lighting, staging, all these kinds of things. I mean, if you take like Sonage in up in Joburg, I mean that's a classy like setup. And in Cape Town, we've got like Daisy Jones Bar. So just using those two venues, like on each side of the country, us to be able to play in such a space with that level of technical expertise and high quality equipment was like unheard of, back in the early 2000s. Um, so yeah, things have really moved along in that sense. But obviously, on many layers, the scene has changed and evolved. Just even how bands function has like changed a lot. Um, I think on the tech side, if we want to get all nerdy and talk about gear, um, not what we find when we enter a venue, but what we use as a band ourselves. Like we actually used to pride ourselves as being like kind of pioneering. Um, I mean, it was like quite early days when we started using like orchestration and backing tracks and click tracks as part of our performance. But I mean, we started out with that system Oaks use where it's like you have the left channel is the click 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 and the right channel goes to the PA for the drummer to like keep time with an accompaniment. So we were one of the early adopters to actually use like an external sound card and have a stereo um, like backing track, because our drummer Andres, he writes all this beautiful orchestration. Like he's a full-on composer. That's like literally what he does for a living. So we wanted to bring that into our music and sound engineers were like, "What are you guys? What is this you're bringing here?"
You were like a fucking living nightmare for them. Like,
Yeah, 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 yeah. Whereas now we're the easy guys to work with. You know? Like the kind of tech that bands are bringing in now has kind of outpaced us. Where once we felt like we were the pioneers, we were like leading the charge. Now we're trying to catch up. So that's kind of cool because I am a bit of a nerd. Like I do enjoy the techie side of things. Um, but yeah, so I mean, I could talk for hours about the development, but let's call that in a nutshell.
that's great though, because that is a wildly different perspective than what I usually hear, like when, uh, on this particular topic, because you're 100% right, is that you hear a lot of it, there those complaints of there aren't enough venues, there aren't enough like A, B, and C. And a lot of the guys that I've spoken to who have this complaint are the guys who were involved in the late 2000s to the early like 2010s. That's when I think there was like obviously that rise, like, there was like a multitude of venues. There was obviously that little bit of a crash, but your thoughts on it is like so polarizing to the ones that I usually hear about it, and it's really good to actually hear that contrast. Um, and I do just imagine, like, I'm sorry, I just have to touch on, like, I am 100% imagining you guys being like, yeah, no, we're a hard rock band, and then rocking up. And
Yes.
if you sounded anything like that video that was uploaded from 18 years ago, that that would send me.
We would start our show with like a song. We'd never even recorded the damn song, but we had a song which started with like a clean picking, like very lovely, very melodic, and then like just as everyone's guard has dropped, we're then like slap in with the distortion, double bass. We go, "Brrr." But by that time it's too late to like tell us, no, no, this is not going down tonight. So that was our little tactic, like just that first couple of months, when like no one knew us and like we had to like bullshit our way into a venue. But in retrospect, it actually worked out well for us because some early shows we also played like the student nights at a venue called Mercury in Cape Town. They used to have this thing called the Six Gun Sessions on a Monday night, where all the like sort of noob bands would come and like play. But it was like those days, like indie was massive, and like punk rock was massive. But a lot of bands who started out were a little rough around the edges. So like being student night, most of the people were there just to get gesape. Um, so the bands wouldn't really enjoy like a very captive audience. There'd be tons of people, but like people were just in that bar area to like get their drinks and go to the dance floor. Uh, but when Minor Assault came, then we started with our very tame intro and then engaged metal. People are like, what's this? So although they might not have,
Kind of demand the attention.
yeah, yeah, like they didn't really come out that night expecting metal nor wanting metal, but when it was served to them, I, I think it captivated them because it was like a dumpster fire. It's like, it's not something you think you're gonna want to see, but when you see it, it's like, what's this?
Call it almost like a morbid fascination. Like you're not quite sure how you feel about it, but you can't stop watching either.
Yes, yes. But the cool thing was we actually built a following out of those people because we played like I don't know, 3 or 4 of these student nights, not like in a row, but over a period of a couple of months. And then the venue themselves like said, all right, well, you guys are graduating to the upstairs venue because the Six Gun Sessions was down in the small, like the secondary bar area, which had a little platform and whatnot. So we earned our way to like getting a Friday night booking in the main venue. Um, and like the rest is just history from there.
One thing that I would like to touch on is like, what is I get the vibe that there's like a very strong message like behind Mind Assault's music. I mean, that very first video that I watched was like, along the lines of like every, I can't remember the exact numbers, but every day a certain amount of animals are killed for food.
Oh, that's the video you're talking about. Okay.
Yeah.
Innocent Blood, it's called.
It's so brutal. Um, but like I assume it has to do with like animal rights and animal cruelty, and like what sort of messages does the band tackle, and how has that kind of evolved over the years as well?
evolved over the years, that's kind of key as well. I think when it's hard actually to now at age like almost 45 reframe my psyche into age 23. And I think for all of the members, it's kind of the same. It's a lifetime ago. Something that I find interesting in the world of social media and dare I say it, cancel culture and like all these kinds of things, which are like today problems that were unthought of in the like 90s and the early 2000s. It's almost like people think a person is just a static thing. Like you capture a snapshot of who a person is today, and that defines who they are forever. And I think the same goes for music and the type of music an artist creates and the type of message that an artist conveys. So at that time of our like career, when we started the band, like the name Mind Assault kind of says a lot already. It's like um, we were very interested in like psychological things, particularly psychological manipulation, um, and like propaganda tools, and even like non nefarious, although I would argue I actually work in marketing. So when I talk about marketing, I sometimes do talk about it as nefarious, like equally as nefarious as warfare. um, and the competition to occupy the space in a consumer's mind. Um, every day you leave your house, you're confronted with a barrage of assault on your psyche, on your senses. Everyone wants in, everyone wants to captivate you to their agenda, usually to sell you something or to gain something from you. So the original idea of Mind Assault was kind of like, well, this is the life we live. Our mind is constantly under assault. Um, and us as a band starting out, we're like, well, we're no different actually, because we want to get in there and assault your mind, like get you thinking about us coming to our shows, but like being kind of like, a bit cheeky, a bit ironic, but transparent, like ironically transparent. So when it came to Innocent Blood, um, what was interesting at the time was, look, none of us were vegan at that time. I mean, I'm partially vegan now, but only in the sense that I'm married to a vegan. So I live a largely vegan life, but I'm not a vegan. Um, but at that time, the idea of animal rights was an interesting idea. It was kind of new. It was something which in our teenage years was like unheard of. So one could even say it was taboo. And being taboo, it was attractive to us. So we looked into it, and someone showed us a movie at the time. I think it was called Earthlings, um, where it was very much an activist documentary about the cruelty to animals and the exploitation of animals. And like, yeah, we just found that really hard hitting. So we made the song, and we made that video. But yeah, it hasn't like defined necessarily uh, who we are as people per se. That might sound a bit hypocritical, but I don't think to make music, to make art, you have to define yourself as a human being. You can explore subjects, you can explore topics, and you take something away from them. Um, like I think in those days, veganism being taboo was something that a lot of people would actually mock. But I get it. Like with veganism, you like also get those like sort of very combative personalities inside the vegan movement. So I think we've maybe written a song or two about that type of personality as well. So, it's about looking at topics from different perspectives, um, and yeah, like not being like disingenuous to that perspective, just exploring it, growing from it.
I really like that how you frame that, where people, both with people in general as well as with music, where they kind of like take a snapshot and then they just associate that with that person or that artist for like the rest of their career or the rest of their life. And I'm very much a fan of like evolution, watching how an artist's sound evolves, or watching how people evolve over time. Obviously, there are exceptions to that. Some people never change. Some artists never change. They kind of stick to one thing. But it is very interesting to watch, and like you said, to see what your frame of mind was at the time and how you kind of perceived it, and how you perceive it now as much later in life would be completely different to how you perceived it, because to all intents and purposes you are not the same person you were at
No. No, not at
23.
all.
Like, your views on life dramatically changed how you would perceive the world and perceive certain, like, actions and events.
Yeah, well, I think once you've been around the block so many times, like you kind of are obliged to see it that way because it's the nature of life. But we don't understand those things at like 23, 24 years old. So, yeah, it's like, boy, if only we knew. If only we could read the crystal ball. But yeah, I mean, I think in terms of song content, like,
Also, like what you said about marketing.
oh, yeah, yeah, it's my career. But I left the career for a long time actually. But COVID made me go back to it. Needed a bit of security in life.
Understandable, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, that fucked everyone big time, eh? But with the song content thing, it's like if I look at the kind of material we were writing in those years, everything was very like gung ho, very like Captain Courageous. Like we were young and invincible, and we could conquer the world. And I think a lot of our lyrical content kind of like reflected that. Um, Whereas if I look at our last album released in 2021, like a lot of the themes are actually quite darker. Like, let's say a little bit more life experienced. So yeah, like change of subject material. But yeah, like I suppose also, sorry, just on the veganism thing with that song Innocent Blood, I was thinking of Cattle Decapitation as a good example. Like, that's a band who actually became defined in a way by the lyrical content. Like they like their whole band now is kind of considered as a animal activist band, which is kind of cool. Like, and I love their music and I love their songs. Like, I love the way they can like almost like swap the roles, where like they're the beasts and the humans are the like the exploited. It like it's a fun play on things. But yeah, that's an interesting sort of example where like a band took their lyrical content and shaped the rest of the band around that, their whole career.
Cattle decapitation is probably one of the best examples of that overall. Looking into, like, what is the future of Mind Assault at this point? I know you've said largely that, like, it's you guys play purely for the sake of just enjoying making music. What are the future plans for Mind Assault at this point?
Like, I'm actually glad you asked, because there's a lot of people out there who used to see us as a very, very, very active band, playing like pretty big shows and stuff like that. Um, but then we fell quiet for a long time. So, like a big part of that was like members of the band going through different phases of life, parenthood, business ownership, stuff like that. And then we were going to do this big comeback in 2020, but then COVID kind of fucked that up. uh, but I think even the COVID experience transformed our mindset somewhat. Um, and we've also gone through a few lead guitarists over that interim. We keep losing lead guitarists to immigration. So our original guy, he was actually from Namibia. And he was quite a number of years in South Africa, but he eventually returned to his family in Namibia. Then our next guitarist, we toured to Romania, Eastern Europe. He fell in love there, so we lost him. And then the guy we had just prior to COVID was also a Namibian, and he has last year also returned. home to families. So, yeah, like on the lead guitar side, we've been a bit like I won't say unlucky. These are all amazing musicians, and they've all left their fingerprints on the band. But we're now working with a guy called Neil Bezadenote, who in the Cape Town scene is reasonably well known, excellent lead guitarist, and he's kind of injected a bit of a fresh life into our band. But I think we're at a stage of our lives where pursuing the big goals is no longer that important. Um, so with Neil having joined, we just want to focus on writing again. Um, I mean, we released our last album, The Cult of Conflict, in 2021, and we were supposed to tour that, and we were supposed to make a big deal out of it. But owing to the pandemic, that obviously threw a wet blanket over the whole thing. But I think that helped us to also transition to a band who's comfortable with being more a studio focused band. So that's not to say we won't hit the live stage, but we're not interested in playing more than two, maybe three shows a year. Um, and they don't even need to be like big, you know. If it so happens that it's big, fine, but we're not going to bend over backwards to get those kind of shows. Um, we just want to make the best metal we can um, with our friends. And I think we're kind of fortunate that we do have like a little bit of a legacy status. So the shows we have done in the last 2 years have been few and far between, but they've always been like significant. So we're going to continue that for a while. But yeah, I think a band would be naive to think that they can just ride the legacy on and on and on forever. I mean, we're not Black Sabbath. We're not Static X or whatever. It's like um, we need to create, um, and I think we're in a good position in life to focus on that more than because playing the circuit, it's a lot of fun, but it costs a lot of money. It takes a lot of energy, and you start to get the sense after a while that you're just like chasing your own tail, and it exhausts you. So yeah, we'll be writing and recording and gigging infrequently. So I guess that brings us to the next show. uh, we've been invited by Gino, Genocide, who is Distortion Aesthetics, to play his upcoming show, Nostalgia Indulgia. I enjoy the play on words because, like, Mind Assault, for a lot of metalheads in Cape Town, is a bit of a nostalgic um, sort of vibe. Um, and we're playing with another band who's kind of coming out of retirement, Sabretooth. We played quite a few shows with them, like back in the early 2010s. So I think it's been a good solid decade since they were on stage. So yeah, it's going to be quite fun having an almost like reunion-y kind of vibe with those chaps. Um, yeah, and like we still cross paths with some of the members who are still active in the scene. But to have some of the others come out of retirement, yeah, that's going to be pretty cool. So yeah, that's September the 13th at the Armchair Theatre um, with Sabretooth, uh, Slur, which is like a more like I think they call like trap metal kind of act. So that's not really like nostalgia, but what I love about the show that Gino's curating is that he's kind of like going across a spectrum. Like Sabretooth is very old school. Like they're kind of almost like we used to think of them as almost like a more like hair metal kind of band back when they were active with us in those days. Then we're like more the sort of like late 90s, early 2000s like kind of vibe. Then We Kill Cowboys is also on that lineup, which is not strictly metal, but they're like very hard rock and very like chios. They're quite popular in Cape Town at the moment. Um, and yeah, and Slur. So yeah, what a cool lineup. What an interesting lineup. It's a show like we haven't seen in years. It's the kind of lineup you would actually see on a festival, just with not 20 bands, just four. So yeah, we're pretty amped actually.
No, fantastic. Patrick, thank you so much for taking the time to have a chat with me today. I really appreciate it. Sorry for the technical issue on my side. It was an absolute blast having a chat with you. And yeah, I'm so stoked to see how the show turns out. And I'm so stoked to see what the future of Minor Soul holds.
Yeah, thanks, man. Thanks to you. Thanks to Sludge Underground. Really appreciate the work you guys do. It just helps keep the whole how do you say it, like the national community a little bit more interconnected. So yeah, keep it up and thank you.
Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate that.